Just when you think you have things figured out, all of a sudden you have to regroove your entire thought process. Welcome to Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest, joined as always on these Thursdays by the great Mike Jones, who was all over this gaming convention yesterday that happened to hit town. I forget the official title of it. I was trying to get in there, and who knew that you could be shut out if you're only carrying cash? You would think that that would be the commodity. If I had offered to pay for this parking with Bitcoin, they probably would have taken it. But I happen to have had my wallet raided earlier in the morning, so I didn't have my credit card on me. I get to the door there of the or the gate at the parking lot. I'm handing the guy a 20, which was already. This is one of the things, and I don't want any disparaging remarks because I'm Jewish and suggesting that the frugality element was in play there. But one thing I hate paying for is parking. I really do. I don't mind if it's somewhat reasonable, but when they start with the gouging like they do at ball games and it's $40 to go see a football game, and you're thinking, I only paid $35 for the freaking tickets. I got to pay $40 to park my car, especially if you're going to a game by yourself to cover it or something along those lines, and you don't have a free parking pass. So I'm already cringing a little bit about laying out the 20, and the guy says, I can't take it. I can't take cash. So I got shut out. But you were in there saying that this gaming convention what was very interesting, and you were able to make some headway
Yeah,
with a project that you've been working
yeah,
on for some time.
yeah.
How are you?
It's good. It's a very interesting show. All the big players are there, speaking, talking about the industry, talking about influencers, helping out handicappers. There was a lot of dynamic to the whole thing that I thought that was interesting for us and for a lot of topics in the gaming industry. So I think it was SBC Americas is what it's called, Sports Betting Convention of Americas. A lot of Central and South American participants. Maybe English, I would say, was the first language, but it might be a close, Spanish being a close second, and Portuguese, and it was everybody, a lot of British people. So it was a kind of nice diversion of people, and it was really a good event. I can't wait to get back there today.
All right, and you've been attending all of the events there, which is
Yeah.
really, really great. Now, I don't know if that took you away from doing any degenerate gambling of your own, but here on Bury Your
Well,
Bookie yesterday, I literally buried our public as I suggested that you take the points in both games. I ignored the stat about the Boston Celtics that they were 9-2 without Jason Tatum. I'm figuring they're toast. Knicks are coming on; they're playing well. They're not going to fall hopelessly behind, which they didn't in the first half, but instead of having to rally from the grave, they dug one in the second half. People might start to make the assertion that maybe Tom Thibodeau, who, by the way, I know you're a New York sports fan. Tom Thibodeau, doesn't he look like he got robbed at Katz's Deli and they only gave him one slice of pastrami for
yeah.
$26 on two pieces of rye bread, no mustard, no possible accompaniments or garnishings, and yeah, he just has that look of an old schleppy guy that's whining and fetching about everybody and everything. And at the same time, I mean, he's had these starters averaging 40 minutes a game. Was there any indication in your estimation, Mike Jones, that the Knicks might have run out of gas in that horrific second half that they had, as they now are up 3-2 and going back to the game?
Look at the 3-point percentage. They shoot 25%. They're knocking them down last night. Derek White looked unstoppable. I thought when you look at that game from a psychological standpoint, it was edge Boston, as crazy as it sounds. My guys at handicap say that initial game where you're without that star, there's a lot of push for the team that's losing that person. And then, especially in a series format, there's a lot of resist because now you think, oh, we got a break. We don't have to face them. Maybe that's that little hair relaxation part that the Knicks had. No up 3-1, seeing their chances. They don't have Tatum. He buried us in game 4, but we got through it. And then all of a sudden, that's what happens. They start knocking down shots. They gain a little momentum. Knicks aren't getting the calls, some loose ball plays and all that stuff. And then now all of a sudden you're down 15, and now the crowd is into it because now they're hoping they're not going to have another comeback. And then they see 25 before 5, and that basically ends the game. And that's really kind of that momentum thing, that psychological part of gambling is where that ends up now. Well, did Boston find out that maybe they should press Jalen Brunson and Towns defensively and take them a little bit out? They made a lot of plays against them last night, made them forced to play both ends. Maybe they came up with that thinking, they didn't have that star. They got to come up with some different adage. The coaching staff got together, figured they're going to play it a little differently. Big game, game 6. I think if the Knicks lose, they're in trouble.
Yes, and it goes in conjunction with our theory that we've been espousing of late, which is And Red Auerbach had to be rolling over in the grave when he saw the Celtics blow two 20-point leads at home to begin the series and go down 0-2. They bounced back in game three when you think they're dead and buried, although there were many out there that figured, all right, this can't continue. And sure enough, the Knicks came back and won game four. And maybe at this point, or we probably should have done it before this game. You figure, okay, when a team is at its absolute most suspect and vulnerable, that's the time to pull the trigger on things going the other way. And if you had bet the Celtics when they were down 3-1, I would imagine you got a pretty hefty price on them to bounce back in the series. And here they are on the threshold of facing, at least putting the Knicks in a position where you're saying to yourself, must win. And then the stat that stood out that I chose to ignore, of course, from my clever handicapping and the burying of our audience yesterday was, and we did point it out, they were 9-2 without Tatum, and now 10-2, and now 4-2 against postseason teams that made the postseason. So I don't know. I mean, Tatum's going to be out all the next year. I can't imagine that you would think that they were in a better position without this guy, who's an excellent player. May not be the top of the top tier, but no one can really knock him, even if you hate the Celtics. So a very interesting development there. And of course, in the other game, I recommended you take the 10.5 with Denver. And no, not Denver, with Golden State. I think they might respond, even though they're without Steph Curry. And of course, Minnesota wins by 11. So
get hooked.
live by the hook, die by the hook. And I take one right up the ass yesterday. As we gave out two losers. We did cash on the laying a goal and a half with the Panthers at plus 179. I thought that was a good play.
Good
so
bet.
on the day, you lose.
$20, you lose $50. Not bad. $40. That's not bad.
And that's part of being a sharp gambler is can you make amends somehow? You don't want to bet necessarily everything in a parlay because that went up in smoke right away.
Right.
But if you bet those games individually on the recommendation, okay, on a night where you're essentially a big time loser, you only lose 1/6 of your bankroll of the amount of money that you wagered. So that's money management, and that's the way to stay in the game.
Yeah, I mean the Panthers. Again, you listen to the hockey people that give me information, and it's like they saw something in game three with game four. They get the win, they get the monkey off their back kind of thing in the overtime in game three. Then game four, Wall keeps them in a game that they should have been 7 or 8-0. And so you look at that, they win 2-0. Bob gets his act together, giving up a high end goal average, and now all of a sudden you get up to Toronto and you start seeing. I think it was a first goal wins type attitude you look at when you're watching that game as it goes out. But according to my guys who watch hockey, saying Toronto has lost slightly a little bit of their edge skating. Not as quick, getting a little beat up on the boards. Panthers a little bigger and stronger, tougher. And I think that's what you're seeing. And then you have that mystique, the psychological play, Jeff, where this team is 3-16 when they're up 2-1 in game fours. This is a team that just doesn't have that pedigree of success. And I think that's what the fan base is there. And I thought very shocking moment at the end when people were not throwing hats on the field for hat tricks, but actually throwing their jerseys on the ice and taking them off and saying, I've had enough. And this is a team in the second round of the playoffs. Forget what I think about my Giants now. I'd be throwing bags everywhere. But for this team in the second round of the playoffs is throwing jerseys on the ice. There's something strange going up in Toronto. The fan base has had enough, haven't won the title since 67. And we're seeing a little bit of the frustration out there. And it looked a lot on the ice in the last couple minutes, too, that these Toronto players have to go out in public, and they're taking out on the Panthers. A lot of fisticuffs, a lot of misconducts, a lot of grubbing even at the end of the game. So game 6 should be interesting. Can't see the Panthers lose, and I think their domination's holding up. Scored 10 out of the last 11 goals in the series. Kind of like them. You're going to lay a big number, 250, but I think they close it out.
I'm with you on that, but after yesterday's performance in the 2 basketball games, recommending that, as my grandmother said on her deathbed, her last words to me were, take the points, always take the points. She knew her stuff, too. I mean, she was talk about a gambler that probably ended up on the winning side. All right, the other game last night, Edmonton closes out its series against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Dramatic overtime victory there. And weren't you, Mike, among the guys that we have on the show? I think you were the guy that was touting Edmonton all the way along, no?
Yeah, I was. And the thing is, I got off him in game 3. What was it? Game 4, I got off him. I thought that series was going to get tied. And last night we was on him, but I thought that we would see some goals scored. Skinner had been not been sharp. I didn't think he can get back-to-back shutouts, and here we go. He has almost 7 periods and have not given up a goal. So it looks like he's back to where he was. I like that the Casper. I like what they're doing. They're getting a lot of production from their offlines in Edmonton. I think that's really the key that I'm seeing is that they're very competitive in the second and third lines, where usually everybody likes McDavid and Josh Seidel. So I think Edmonton's going to be a tough out. I foresee a Dallas. Don't know if I think that's a tight game. I wouldn't bet it in Winnipeg. I think Dallas closes it out in game 6 at worst. I think they can easily win game 5. I think that Dallas Edmonton series is going to be fantastic. I was with a guy yesterday, a hockey guy at the conventions. We talk at all sports, and he loves Dallas. Has been on him since the start. I didn't see it that way, but we discussed it, and I thought Edmonton. He thinks they're going to beat Edmonton. I think otherwise. So it should be an interesting discussion if we get back into it today. But yeah, so it's I like Edmonton's chances, and I probably would like him to get to the finals, especially if Skinner's playing the way he is. I know Ottinger's been fantastic for Dallas, a lot better than he was in the regular season. But Skinner getting these 2 shutouts has to really give the whole team a lift. I think they'll get a bounce in the next series.
Living here in South Florida, and naturally we catch the Panther games. They're all pretty much televised, I would think. I don't think they skip any of them. One network or another is carrying them, whether it's national or local. And so we see a lot of the Eastern Conference teams more so than the West. And I was surprised at the outset of the playoffs, as we don't see as much Western Conference hockey here on the East Coast. That Dallas was the favorite of all the teams in the field to win it all, slightly at, I think, plus 600, ahead of the Panthers at plus 650. And it is, I mean, the last thing you would expect the NBA to be all chalk. Still could turn out that way if Boston somehow bounces back against the Knicks. But and you have the chance tonight of Oklahoma City closing out the Denver Nuggets, and I don't know that that's going to happen either. Well, we'll get into that. So let's start in the NHL with tonight's slate. You have Carolina up 3-1 over Washington. Washington been kind of quiet, very much sedated.
Yeah.
Carolina's oppressive and aggressive attacks. They're up 3-1. They have a chance to close out tonight. And Dallas is up 3-1, as you mentioned, over Winnipeg. Any thoughts on those 2 games, Mike?
Yeah, if I had to pick one, I think Carolina's really showed domination in the series. I would think that, these are the tough ones because you're closing out on a road. I mean, Edmonton got away with it last night, but now you got Dallas and Carolina actually need to win games on the road. They don't want to go back for a game 6. Changes the complexion of the series. And unlike basketball, these 3-1 leads in hockey get blown a lot more often. So I would think that they're going to be focused tonight. I think Carolina outscoring them 9-2 in the 2 games in Carolina. I think they have an edge. If I had to pick one game tonight, it would be Carolina that they would go and close out Washington. The other game, I just think Hallenbuck hasn't been sharp. I like Dallas in the game, but I don't know that I would bet it because I just think it's a pick'em game, and I think this is Winnipeg's last straw. There's a reason why they won the points. They were the best record in hockey. It's a tough game. If I had to bet it, it would be Dallas to go stay with the 2 teams who are closing out. But the other thing, too, is Dallas might want to get the rest that they need. They don't want to let Edmonton get away with them. All of a sudden take it to an extended series, and that helps Edmonton prepare for the next series.
I kind of think it was Richard Dreyfuss, right, in Let It Ride, where the tout would come up and he was hanging out with another guy, that was always around him, a wingman at the track, and tout would come up and say, "Yeah, everything you got on the 4." And then after the guy walked away, after he thanked him for the pick, he'd turn to his buddy and say, "Put a line through that one." And you can kind of put a line, it seems like, every year through the President's Trophy champion,
Right.
the highest point total in the league during the regular season. Winnipeg looks like it's about to submit to that theory that the President's Trophy winner never wins the Stanley Cup. It's happened, but it hasn't happened for a long, long time. All right, in baskets tonight, OKC and Denver. Denver getting 4.5 at home. What do you make of that one, Mike?
Same scenario. You got to look back at Denver's first quarter and how that got away from them, and them losing by 5 in game 4. They get up there, they get a 9-10 point lead with 5 minutes to go, and then OKC makes that run. I think they were up even, I think it was even closer. I think they were up maybe with 3 minutes to go. And, they get down 12-2 and make a great comeback and have a halftime lead. So to me, you look at it like Denver's got to have championship pedigree. They got to have heart. Crowd's got to be into it. I'm not taking OKC to knock them out at home. I would think I would take a small play on the money line with Denver and take Denver plus the points tonight. Just thinking that they're just not going to go at home. I'm thinking, yeah, tough to bring it to a game 7, but I like chances. I mean, you had no business covering the 6.5 with OKC Sunday. It seemed like that game should have been away. I mean, you end up getting the last bucket for Denver to cover the 5. And it seems like there's instances where these games will stay close, and at the end of the game, they don't seem to foul. So I'll take my chances 4.5 on a buy to 5 with Denver tonight.
All right, we know this about you, and you've told the story that you are a dangerous ringer when it comes to being involved in any member guest tournament, including the one that you competed in Las Vegas. I don't know. Did you walk away with cash in that one? Did you get the
Nah,
trophy?
we struggled a little bit. My team's not up to par.
But
Concentrated too much on podcasting and the golf,
the
unfortunately.
beautiful thing, though, about golf is that not only can you bet it every day, and now it's down to the point where you can bet every shot, but you can still get down if your player hasn't teed off yet to begin the
Yeah.
tournament. You can still get down on certain guys. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it's early in the morning, and they're in North Carolina, Quail Hollow. The weather's good, so everybody's going to get it underway. Check the tee time for the people that you want to bet, the players that you want to bet, but you can still get involved. I don't know what your thoughts are on that because you're looking at the usual suspects. Favorite in this thing as Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy. McIlroy's got 4 wins at that course, by the way.
Right.
So, horses for courses, you'd have to
Yeah.
say McIlroy was a factor. But there's no romance in betting golf when you got a guy that's under 5-1 to win the tournament.
No.
Even and certainly you can't with any overwhelming conviction think, well, even though Scheffler's playing great, he may win the tournament, but he's not winning with my money at plus 450 anytime soon. And we had Straka finally break through. I was betting him all year. Of course, didn't bet him last week in the Truist.
Right.
Any thoughts on who's going to win this thing for the people that might want to rush to the windows right now or get on their phone app and send it
Well,
in a player that hasn't teed off yet, which is
the
most.
one great thing about live betting golf, and most of these event operators have this, is that you'll be able to bet to the winner after round 1.
Yes.
And if you go back to the history, if you take a guy in the top 15, I think you're pretty successful. That they'll most likely be the winner. So you've eliminated 140 golfers right there, and then you look at who the long odds are, and maybe some sleepers. So right now you got a real sleeper in Luke Donald, who's 1 shot off the lead. You have Ryan Fox who's in the lead at 3 under. 2 guys that we probably would have been in the field to start the event, right? So you got
Yeah.
you wouldn't probably get a number on them. And that's what happens in these majors. Sometimes a guy steps up, 156 guys going for it. And, it's not like the Masters. You only have 90 to 100 guys playing. So now you have an extended field, tougher to beat that many guys. One guy in that final 50 or 60 could get hot and start making putts. And all of a sudden now it changes. So to me, the numbers are short because of this great dominance of Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy winning the Masters and getting that so-called monkey off his back and everybody thinking he's going to win more majors and his success here at Quail Hollow. You kind of want to stay away. But my thought would be see where you get him after round 1. See where those guys fall. Might get 7 or 8-1, maybe 10-1 if they shoot even par, and maybe they got to chase 6 or 7 shots. And then you got a guy who's not normally up there that might feel that pressure of being in a moment of now taking the lead. And next time he might go out tomorrow and shoot 78. So this is what happens with golf. So my little pick, if I were to look at, might be Bryson because I don't think so. But I think I'll be honest, Jeff, I think once the game that tips off, I don't know that you can get odds to win. You can get daily matchups, which I think are fun to watch golf match up. But I think you got to wait to bet live tomorrow. So I'll show you.
DeChambeau hasn't teed off yet, though. You can get down
I
on
think Scheffler has actually. Right? Didn't him and McIlroy go off? No.
He may have. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't see all of the schedule there, but I did see that there was a guy they posted on the leaderboard. He was 1 under after 1, and you figure he's going to disappear. That being said, I'll never forget. And speaking of hedging, I recommended to my listening audience when I was doing a radio show here in South Florida that I'm always looking for what I consider to be the nondescript European schmenk who's going to rise to the top of the field in these major events. It used to be Usti, and then people caught on to Usti as a serious challenger. And I remember having Francesco Molinari the year the Tiger won the Masters. And just as I tune in, they started the tournament early. Remember that final round as Molinari was in the lead, and I had him, I believe, at like 25 or 30-1. Right. And I didn't realize the tournament was already going on because of the weather, inclement weather threat. And just as I find it on CBS, the coverage, Molinari sends one into the woods, and Tiger hits a great shot. They were like 11 or 12 holes into the thing, and Molinari completely fell apart. But I did give out Martin Keimer to win the U.S. Open one year.
Ooh, good
He
one.
won wire to wire. I mean, he
Yeah.
opened up and he was 10 strokes in front going to the final round.
Hmm.
And I asked myself the magic Shakespearean question that every degenerate gambler has at some point has to deal with, and that is to hedge or not to hedge. And you could hedge off at even money. He was up 10 strokes going to the final round. The likelihood of a Van de Velde type collapse seemed slim to none
Right.
as he was playing well, but you never know. And you could actually bet you could have gotten the rest of the field at even money if you wanted to hedge off your bet. He was
Wow.
45 to 1. So I
Wow.
was going to make a score if he won it, which he did.
Hmm.
But you still had the opportunity to maybe get your money back if you had $100 on the guy to pick up 4,500. You just didn't want to lose the 100.
Right.
You could have put 100 down on the rest of the field and at least broken even if
Sure.
something catastrophic happened to Keimer. But I didn't hedge in that situation because 10 shots seemed like it was prohibitive for anybody to catch him. No matter how badly he fucked things up, I don't think he was gonna
No.
lose the tournament. But yeah,
No.
I mean that was a strategy of mine, and it's great now. You can hedge all throughout,
Sure.
and it's only a matter of time before somebody at one of these majors, maybe you're breaking the silence at Amen Corner, who has money on the next putt, starts screaming out, "Miss it, Fatso!"
Yeah,
As
it's going to
Ron
happen.
in the middle
Yeah.
of his take back on the putter. It's bound to happen, right?
Yeah, you would think, and probably like the PGA event, which was very interesting a couple years ago when Phil Mickelson beat Brooks Koepka. I had heard a story that there were guys taking shots at Koepka's knees as he was walking through the crowd,
Wow.
like literally hitting him. And there was a big crowd gathered around as he walked through, and the guys had to budge their way through, and they were talking for safety reasons. The announcers were talking about it.
Who had
So,
money on him? The Gambinos?
yeah, well, I don't know, but Kepka's dad told me that they were taking shots at his legs, and so he had
Wow.
that knee surgery. So to me, this is coming. This is coming. I think you see certain things happen where you can reactions to crowds on gambling and point spreads. There's a video of Draymond Green saying the other night as Kuminga hit his shot that the line's 5.5, 5.5. That they're thinking if they're not going to win, at least cover. So the
Yes.
players are well aware of this. And I think there should be some ethical points I've made that, we can talk about this in another show, but I believe that if running the shot clock out at the end of a game, because people have second half bets on games, when you're up 15 and you decide to take it minus a point, and now the game's 15 and the guys decide to walk off the court, it affects the gambler. And I think there should be some ethics involved where they should understand this, where the player has to at least, the backups are in. We've always wanted to score points as you're on a bench. You don't want to go out there and just jog and not do anything. But we've had this casual attitude. We don't want to, the participation trophy attitude where we don't want to rub it in or edge anybody. Go to hockey and watch Toronto and see how they felt at the end of the game when the Panthers weren't rubbing it in, but they didn't like the fact they were down 6-0. And they're starting to get antsy. So I think there's got to be something done for the gambler, protection of the gambler to say, we're going to play this out, play it fair. If they don't shoot, they get a technical foul. If the football team takes a knee outside of 3, maybe they have to run plays. I don't know. Something's got to happen to protect the ethics of the gambler, I think. And that's kind of a little bit of a rant there, but it's like that's what I think when it comes down to this stuff that you protect, that you have to protect it.
I'll never forget, there was a reporter down here who used to always ask an agitating question, largely related to his own gambling endeavors. Many, many years ago, Don Shula was holding his post-game press conference, and the Dolphins had taken a knee late in the ball game when they could have either kicked a field goal or at least attempted to run it in. They were winning the game at the time. And this guy, first question up, he used to always poke his way in there and ask the first question. And sure enough, Shula finishes up his remarks, and he had a tendency to bristle at questions that he didn't care for. He wouldn't curse you out like a Parcells would, but or a Belichick, or just walk off. But he would address it. But you could tell. He clearly expressed his dissatisfaction with having to answer certain questions. And a guy blurts out, "Don, can you really be satisfied with a win no cover?" And I thought, and this is before the explosion of interest in gambling, and the reaction of Shula was classic on that. He just gave him the John a look, and the next thing you know, this guy's being escorted out of the room. And so, yeah, I mean, this is something that's been in consideration
Yeah.
for a long, long time. I mean, you always think of the sportsmanship aspect and not rubbing your nose in it, but that would be a hard rule to implement, where you're forcing a team
Yeah, well,
to go ahead and make
tell the
plays.
story. I give you a quick story. I tell the story because there was a game that was early on in college basketball where it was last year where Purdue was playing Wisconsin the last week of the season before the tournament. They were up 16. The line was 8.5 with a minute and a half to go, and they rolled the bench out. And two possessions later, you lay an 8.5, and Purdue doesn't take a shot. They go out there and just let the clock run out. Meanwhile, Wisconsin got their starters in. They bang a 3 for 13. They bang another three to make it 10. And now they pick the backup's pocket with 10 seconds ago, make a layup, and let the game go out, and it was 8. I looked at the final score and said, how did that happen? How did I lose that bet? And I look and I saw that and I said, that's where I came up with this and brought it up to some operators. I said, there's got to be something going on here that how you think you have a win. I get it, but you're telling your team not to play, like, and letting these backups just run on the court who want to go out there, at least they run the shot clock out, sit in midcourt. Meanwhile, the other team goes out and tries. As a gambler, guys who are taking that bet said, I'm not betting anymore. You're going to lose. The guy who has this bad loss is going to say one day, I'm done. I lose enough of this and that. So I think there's got to be some kind of something implemented in the next decade. I think you'll see it where there's going to be a combination of the game. And if the NBA is getting money off these operators and they're getting sponsorships, and they can play around with this for ethics, I would think there's something might be. I don't know. I mean, just I'm reaching for that there, Jeff, but
Yeah.
something's got to have to be done because
Scrubs usually want to make the box score. I mean, when I came in late in a basketball game, and it was limited to 30 seconds of playing time once every 15 games, I thought, geez, I'm chucking them up there, man. I want my name in the paper the next day. So, yeah, you would think that the inclination would be once you put the Scrubs in a ball game, no matter how large the lead, that they're at least going to try and do something, not just sit on the ball. But, yeah, I mean, it's a very dicey topic and something that you wouldn't have had concerns about, except for the fact that, as you witnessed yesterday and the day before at this convention here in Fort Lauderdale, the explosion in the gambling industry is not even reached its peak yet. So that's kind of good stuff. All right, Mike, always a pleasure, my friend. Good luck with all your wagers over the weekend.
Thanks.
Any baseball?
Actually, kind of looking at it today a little bit. The Twins are playing really good ball. I think there might be some runs scored in that game. I was looking at the over 9 a little bit. And how about this, Jeff? The White Sox looking to sweep in Cincinnati.
3 in a row.
How does that happen? White Sox on the road. Everybody knows the White Sox are the worst team in baseball. 53 wins, although the Rockies record.
Colorado.
Rockies record's telling otherwise. But, they got a chance to sweep Cincinnati, which was unexpected. The Reds weren't playing bad ball going in. That's interesting. And my old guy Beto from the A's getting whacked around a little bit at the Dodgers today, and don't know what to think, in that game. But I've kind of liked what the A's are doing. I know they're keeping players now with the potential move, which is going to happen. I guess not potentially, it will happen to Vegas. I think they're trying to build a team so they can get something brewing there. So they're not a trade team now at the deadline and all that. So, but they're fun to watch, and they're 500, playing good ball, getting a good price. Won on Monday, and then last night they took a 3-2 lead that they gave up. They got beat 9-3, but Beto was good last year, but he's not having the same tough. So these are guys that I'm looking at to see what I'm going to do with.
All right, good luck on all that, my friend. We got the Preakness, so we'll get into that a little bit tomorrow coming up. Although I have to root for my man Umberto Rispoli after he did a show with me this past week on Tuesday on an outlet called Bleacher Brothers. You can check that out. It's called Conversations, and the jockey on journalism, the favorite in the Preakness, joined us for better part of a half an hour. Along with the gentleman who'll call the race on NBC, does an outstanding job, and he nailed the Derby, Larry Colmus. So if you guys are looking for an interesting preview of the Preakness Stakes, check out Conversations on Bleacher Brothers with me. I didn't have to do much on that. I asked, it's kind of like one of my Don King interviews where you would say, hey, Don, how's it going? And then an hour later, he would finish talking. Where both these guys are very eloquent. They are good friends, so they talked and spoke back and forth with each other. I think if you're looking for an interesting horse racing preview, you'll enjoy that Conversations on Bleacher Brothers, where we hope to feature Mike Jones prominently
Yeah.
near future as well. All right, Michael, you're a great American. Enjoy the convention again today, and thanks so much for being with us here on Bury Your Bookie.
Great to be with you, Jeff. Thanks.
All right, for Mike Jones, I'm Jeff DeForest. Good luck, everybody. Hope we have a little bit better luck in those basketball games than I did with you guys yesterday, and we'll see you tomorrow with the professor on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.